The Indian Manufacturing Association, though, within this space has hit back, saying that this is false and that the USTR as well as the foreign medical device manufacturers are spreading misinformation. Joining us now is Mr. Rajiv Nath. Mr. Nath, appreciate you joining us. The US trade representative has said that India's policy disincentivizes firms and discourages investments. It has led to uncertainty and hence US companies may in fact have to rethink their presence in India. They also go on to say that the NPA price caps do not sufficiently differentiate on the levels of technology. You believe that there is no truth to these, to the claims that are being made by the USTR?
Well, I would say that the US companies have been feeding in misinformation and lies to USTR. I would urge the United States to start an investigation into the malpractices of the exploitative pricing being charged earlier before the price cap by these large companies which were looting the Indian public.
Okay.
You've got the same stents being sold in Germany for about 120 euros, in Turkey for something like 650 liras, which is about 10,000 rupees, and also in tenders in Italy, which is far lower than the MRP which is put over here. And the Indian public was paying something like 1.5 to 2.5 lakh rupees for these stents. So as long as they were getting a free run of the market, they were very happy. And every time from IMED, we would be saying that to encourage investments in the country, we need to be protected to some level. We can't have the imports coming in at zero rate of duty. So kindly increase the duty to the WTO bound rates of 40%, or at least half of that. And every time we would be blocked that this is not in the consumer's interest. Well, the consumer interest was never being served. And now when the consumer interest was being served,
but that was,
and IMED was supporting
that was a decision of the Indian government, Mr. Nath. That's a decision of the Indian government, sir. It has nothing to do with, or it's not a decision that has been taken by the US manufacturers.
That's right, that's right. And actually, it should be the hospitals who should be crying because it's their margins which have been hurt. I'm quite surprised what are the US MNCs trying to gain from this whole, I mean, what's their pain? There were only 4 brands in the NPPA report which had their import landed cost as higher than the capped MRP. Everybody's, all the other brands were much lower. So logically, only the 4 brands should be withdrawn.
Let's talk about the road ahead, Mr. Nath. Now, what we are given to understand is that there are examples of Chinese stents that are now being rampantly used. So how do you, as IMED, see this in light of what we've seen happen with the price capping controversy? And is that not going to be the new problem that you're going to have to deal with?
Again, this is misinformation being fed to the media. I think in a short while the data will be published and out, and you will see that the Chinese inroads are not so much as being claimed. Otherwise, we'll be shouting about it, not the MNCs.
What is the quantum according to you?
And
what is the quantum according to you of the Chinese imports, sir?
They just started importing this year, and it's negligible. And they were starting a malpractice, which was immediately stopped by NPPA, whereby they were trying to circumvent the NPPA order by allowing their distributors to become direct importers and then have higher margins. But the NPPA permits only 8% margins for the distributors. And then this immediately stemmed their growth. Now, coming back to the Indian manufacturers. The Indian manufacturers have gained market share. They've grown at about 20 to 25% from all the members I've spoken to in IMED who make stents. And they expect the market share of the Indian products to cross 50% this year and achieve 60% next year. So this is good news for India because what's happened is that the competition has now moved by correcting the marketplace to the buying price of the for the hospitals. Earlier, they were trying to push the products based on the higher MRP and the higher profit margins, not based on their buying price. You as a consumer normally will buy any product by seeing the quality and the buying price. So the marketplace has been corrected, and that's where we are happy. And consumers also are being happy. So we are really surprised that these MNCs who keep on talking about being patient-centric, consumer-centric, why are they so much worried about this correction? Why don't they don't want this price cap to be extended to other medical devices when we Indian manufacturers and consumers are okay with it? It should be rational. We don't say it should be unreasonably be too low also, but it should not permit exploitation. And we are quite surprised that.
All right.
For us, it is like
that they're raising this with the USTR.
The US government.
Let me ask you, Mr. Nath, because you said that you said that the market share in the stents category has increased significantly. But what about other alternatives, things like knee implants, etc.? You know, are there viable alternatives, and what is the picture there?
Same thing again over there in the knee implants. There are 3 Indian manufacturers for that, and now once they feel incentivized, they'll invest more, because it is very discouraging and demotivating for any manufacturer to put a plant in India and find that you cannot access the Indian government tenders because they're asking for a US FDA certification. So it's unfair to use a third country regulatory approval to access your own market. So it's actually discrimination again, which we find being in favor of the US companies, because they educate the tendering board and the officials over there and corrupt them to use such specifications to keep out the Indian competition. So the Indian government
You're making very serious allegations, Mr. Nath. You're making some very serious allegations, Mr. Nath. But let me ask you then.
I started from this thing that.
What is the response? What is the response from the Indian government, sir?
Well, the Indian government, CCI, has launched an investigation on malpractices in healthcare and on collusionary practices. We hope that they'll expedite this investigation. And even the US government has got certain laws on marketing and ethics and corruption overseas. So we want the US government to please investigate, because the NPPA report shows that there were huge margins of more than 1,000%.
Okay. So do you intend to take up this matter now with the Commerce Ministry? Because the Commerce Ministry, as well as the Prime Minister's office, is now seized of this matter because the USTR has written to both. So what is going to be your pitch and your plea to the Commerce Ministry?
Well, we've informed the ministry already that actually it's the Indian manufacturers who are already feeling the heat or discrimination when we try to sell to US government, because, or to US clients, because there is a US Trade Agreement Act, TAA, under which India is not listed. And because we are not listed over there, no Indian manufacturer can export to any US government establishment or the defense sector over there. So that's the first discrimination we face.
Okay.
The second discrimination we face is that US has got a buy American policy. In India, we don't currently so far have a buy Indian medical device policy. So again, we face discrimination over there. The third discrimination or the challenge for us is that US has got the FTA as a technical barrier to trade, whereas in India, we only have 23 devices covered under regulations. So they have a free run of the Indian market, whereas we need to get to the US FDA approval, which is not easy and very expensive.
Okay, so you're saying that it's the Indian manufacturers that are facing discrimination, and you intend to take this up with the Commerce Ministry, and you're here quashing the claims being made by the USTR when it comes to medical devices and the price cap controversy. Many thanks for joining us here, Rajiv, Nath on CNbc TV 18. Appreciate your time.